guys, my name is Sasha and I work at a restaurant in Tempe called 24 Carats. But today I want to thank you for inviting me into your homes and into your bellies. We're going to be talking about an herb that I really love. It's called rosemary. I'm sure you've seen this all over the valley, but the truth is it's actually popular all over the world. Now, we know rosemary, and we're most familiar with it as something that makes Thanksgiving and holiday meals a little bit more delicious, that flavor in stuffing and in gravy. But rosemary has actually been popular through history and throughout the world. Ancient Egyptians used to use it in intricate burial rituals. Ancient Romans and Greeks thought it was medicinal. The Emperor Charlemagne took it to England in the 8th century AD, where it became very popular because he would encourage monasteries to plant it. And then, fast forward some years, in the 17th century AD, it migrated from Europe into the Americas. And here, it has proven to be an incredibly popular plant because, as you know and I know, living in the desert, water is hard to come by. And these little guys are really, really drought resistant. That means that they're good with low water, and they're hardy, which means that we want to eat it. So we're going to do two recipes today. We're going to do a rosemary garlic popcorn, and then to wash that all down, we're going to do a berry rosemary lemonade. Now, what's interesting about this recipe and what makes it really shine is that you don't need a lot of rosemary. You really just need one sprig per recipe. And the reason you don't need a lot is, even though this doesn't look like too much, herbs have a very interesting superpower. And that superpower is something called essential oils. And what it means is that within all of these beautiful leaves are these really fragrant, wonderful oils. So we're going to start making our popcorn by getting an adult or someone taller than you, someone who can reach the stove a little bit better, and someone who you would trust to be your partner in your cooking expedition today. Now, what I'm going to do in this pot is turn on the heat to medium flame, and that means that if this is a high flame, you want to go, and this is a low flame, so high flame, low flame, you want to go at medium flame, so right in the middle. And we're going to leave that to heat for a couple of minutes. When you put your hands well above top, and you can still kind of feel the warmth, that means it's ready. And what we're going to do then is take off the lid, and we're going to put in 3/4 of the amount of oil you have. Now, this is olive oil, and what we're going to put in is 75% of that. So you're going to have 1/4 or 25% left. So into your pot goes 3/4 of that oil, and you're going to take 3 little kernels of corn and plop that in as well. And what we're going to do is wait for these little kernels to dance, dance, dance. You'll see them starting to move back and forward as they get little bubbles around them. And eventually, much like myself, they can't control their excitement anymore, and they will burst with joy. When that third one bursts with joy, we're going to go ahead and add in the rest of our corn kernels, and we're going to add in some crushed rosemary. So while we're waiting for that, let's go ahead and crush our rosemary. So get 1 sprig of rosemary, fold it in your hand, and start rubbing it together, back and forth, back and forth. And now if you smell that rosemary again, you'll see that it's stronger, a lot more potent, and that not only does the rosemary smell good, but your hands smell good too, because that essential oil transferred onto your hands. All right, this popcorn is looking good, so let's go ahead and get this in. What we're gonna do is take the rosemary, throw it on in, and then we're going to put the rest of our kernels in and cover it. And now what's really important for us to do is to shake it. So every now and then you're going to shake it, but aside from that, this is kind of a waiting game. And usually I'm not very good at waiting, so how do we know when we don't have to wait anymore? And I call it my 2 Mississippi rule. So if you're not hearing popping for a couple of seconds, you want to turn up the heat. And if you're hearing popping too quickly, you want to turn down the heat. And when you start hearing a pop about every second, so every 1 Mississippi, you're going to let that continue until you get to a point where you're not hearing it so often. And if you're only hearing a pop once in a while, where you start to go 2 Mississippis or 3 Mississippis, so 2 to 3 seconds without hearing anything, it might mean that your popcorn is all fully popped. All right, you might see it turning whiter and whiter in there as more and more of those popcorn kernels go, but this is still rolling pretty fast and pretty full steam, so we're gonna let it keep popping. So let's check and see whether or not this is done. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. I didn't hear anything, so I think it's done. So at this point, what you want to do is take the lid off. Ooh, all kinds of steamy. And you're going to take that leftover 25% of your oil, and you're going to drizzle that in. And what drizzle means is don't pour it all into one space. And then you're going to take your seasoning salt, which we're going to finish this dish with, and generously sprinkle it in. And the reason you want to be generous is because popcorn has all these little nooks and crannies, right? And we want to make sure that this seasoning goes right on into all of that. All right, give it a little toss. And I think we're ready to enjoy this. So it's going to still be pretty hot, so you want to make sure that you give it some time to cool. But that's plenty of time to go and tell everybody else in the house that they got to come and try some of your cooking here. Maybe turn on a movie, maybe as an after-school snack. But either way, we've made something pretty delicious. All right, we're ready to make our berry rosemary lemonade. Now, to start this, what you're going to need is to warm up a little bit of water. Now, I have this cute little tea kettle over here, but if you don't have something like that, the microwave will work, or even the stovetop if you have a trusted older friend to help you. All right, so we're going to start making a simple syrup. And what a simple syrup means is that it's just a component of a few things, and it's just sugar dissolved in water usually. But simple syrup doesn't necessarily have to be simple flavored. So what we're going to do is you have your berry sugar, that's that pink sugar that you have rosemary, and we have our hot water. So let's get this going. You have a 1/2 cup of your berry sugar. We're going to put that into a little bowl. And then we have about a 1/2 cup of warm water that we're going to put in. And then what we're going to do is take another sprig of rosemary, and remember, to get that flavor going, we're going to crush it in our hands, back and forth, back and forth. Put that on in. And then what you want to do, this is a whisk, but you can use a spoon or you can use a fork, is stir it until all that sugar is dissolved. And what I mean by dissolved is right now you'll see it sitting at the bottom there. And by the time we're done, we want it to all have been mixed into the water or melted into the water. Now that that's fully dissolved, what we're going to do is set this aside, and we want it to cool off completely. We don't want it to be warm at all anymore. And the best way that I've found to do that, especially if you're not a fan of waiting too long like me, is to put this in the freezer and set a timer for about 10 minutes. And then you want to make sure to take it out. Otherwise, we're going to have simple syrup popsicles. And that's not the recipe we're making today. All right, so we're going to put this across and set it aside and let that cool down. And what we're going to do next is get our lemons going. Now, I have a highly scientific method for juicing lemons that I like to call the squish and roll, or the roll and squish, depending on how you like to do this. What you're going to need is 2 lemons. You should find those in your kit. And then you're going to roll it back and forth with both your hands on top. And then we're going to cut it and squish it. So take a knife, give it a good cut, take a bowl and squish it on in. An easy trick I have found is to take a fork and stick it into your little half lemon cut there, and then as you're squishing it, to move the fork around. And that'll kind of help get all that juice out from inside. Now that all of our lemons are juiced, what we want to do next is to strain out those seeds. Now, you can do it with a sieve, which is how I'm going to do it today, or you can do it with just a spoon. And as you see all of those little lemon seeds or pulp in there, just take your spoon and scoop it right on out. So in goes your juice, and then just take a spoon or a fork and move it back and forth until you get all the juice in your cup and none of the seeds or pulp. All right, you remember that simple syrup we made earlier? You want to go ahead and grab that again. Now that it's all cooled, we're going to take our lemon juice and add that in. Now, this is my favorite part because it means we're one step closer to actually getting to enjoy this. Get yourself 2 cups of nice cold water. And to this, we're gonna pour in our little lemonade maker, the lemon juice with the simple rosemary berry syrup. Here we go. Give it a good stir. And that is all ready to enjoy. My favorite way to enjoy this is to put it back into the refrigerator for a little bit of time, just to make sure it gets nice and cold, or get yourself a glass and fill it up with ice. And that makes for a lovely snack. Thank you so much for joining me today, and happy eating.
Hi, you're going to get a kit today with a plant in it for you to put in the ground or put in a raised garden, and this plant is from the herb family. So this is one of my favorite words. This is herb. You don't pronounce the H if you're in America. If you're in Britain, you pronounce the H, herbs, but it's herbs. These plants are used for flavoring your food, culinary purposes. So in your kit, you're going to get one of them. So you're either going to get basil, or you're going to get oregano, or you're going to get rosemary. One of these is going to be in your kit. So I want to just show you how to plant them or transplant them, because you're going to get them like this. One of these is going to be like this, and then you need to put it in the ground or put it in a raised garden or a pot. I'm going to use a pot right now just to demonstrate how to do this. But so very quickly, I've got a pot here and I have some soil. Don't get too crazy if you don't have bag soil someplace. Just try to get something, or just put it in the ground. These plants are pretty hardy. They're really good for our climate. They'll survive really well. I'm going to demonstrate planting basil because this one's probably the most tender one to transplant. So the plant's going to be in a container like this. You can see the stems right there. I'm just going to try to hold it with my hand under the stem there, just so it doesn't hurt the plant. You can squeeze this a little bit, kind of shake it and loosen it, and there it is. So this is what it looks like upside down. I need to put it in a little kind of hole in here. I'm going to flip it over, set it in there. I've got space on the sides, so I'm just going to fill it in right now. And that's pretty much it. These kind of plants will do well here in our Arizona hot climate. This basil plant, if you get a basil plant, you want to keep it wet or keep it moist, and it should do well for you. It should survive the summer and give you lots of good flavor for some of the food you have. If you get rosemary or you get oregano, let it dry out a little bit between waterings. That's the only difference between these. Anyway, you can plant these, like I said, just directly in the soil, in a pot, in a raised garden. But on these two, let them dry out a little bit between waterings. On the basil, just keep it moist. Don't drown it, but keep it moist. And hopefully you'll get some flavor and you can make something with these this summer. Good luck.